Good evening, welcome to the first edition of your South Atlantic Media Services weekly local TV news broadcast, where we give you a roundup of the stories making the news this week. Making the headlines this week, police issue a statement regarding a serious assault and a case of suspected arson. The National Trust talk about the difficulties of planting a millennium forest. We speak to Landscape and Ecological Mitigation Program Project Manager Russ Towers. And Mr. Ed Baldwin talks about the restoration works and the story of the guns at Ladder Hill. Two worryingly serious crimes have been committed on the island in recent weeks, and in an unusual step, the Saint Helena Chief of Police, Trevor Budding, has issued this appeal.
There are two statements that I'd like to make regarding incidents of the last few weeks. The first relates to a serious assault, and that's following a recent report to the police service. An investigation is being undertaken into a serious assault on a young woman which occurred on Saturday evening in early February at about 10:30 p.m. near to the museum in Jamestown. Two males who were not known to the victim were involved in the assault, and their identities remain unknown. No other details can be released at this point. Whilst the circumstances of this assault lead me to believe this appears to be an isolated incident, I would urge anyone with any information in relation to this assault, or indeed any other incident, to please come forward and speak to us. All information will be treated in the strictest confidence. Additional patrols are in place in Jamestown to provide reassurance to those enjoying a night out. However, I would ask that common sense measures are taken in terms of personal safety. This should include being aware of one's surroundings, staying in the company of friends, and ensuring that arrangements are in place for getting home safely after an evening out. The second statement relates to an offence of what is believed to be arson. And that's during the early hours of Tuesday the 31st of March, the police and the fire service were alerted to a fire at China Lane, where officers found the amphibian's mobile bar on fire. It is suspected that this is a criminal act, and now a case of arson is being investigated. The police are following up all leads, but wish to make an appeal to the public for any information, and there is an offer of a reward of £100 to the person who can assist the police with information that leads to the arrest and conviction of the persons responsible. Police would also like to speak to anyone who've been seen acting suspiciously in the area during the evening or the early hours of Tuesday morning. Please contact my team on 22626 with your information, or should you wish to remain anonymous, then I'd be very happy for you to leave any information on the confidential crime line, which is 22888. Thank you.
That was Trevor Budding, St. Helena's Chief of Police, appealing for information about two serious crimes that have taken place across the island recently. The St. Helena National Trust run a Darwin Initiative scheme called the Community Forest Project. They call for volunteers to join them once a month to help reforestation and beautifications of different parts of the island. Last Saturday, members of the Trust again gave volunteers the chance to learn how to plant trees and contribute to the protection of the landscape. On the day, volunteers planted 146 endemic trees.
It's all part of the Community Forest Project at the National Trust, and one of our key aims for the project is to engage local people in conservation work and looking after all the little endemic forests around the island. Well, it's a very long-term project. To get forests back on this very degraded site is going to take about 100 years. But there's been a great start. Millennium was amazing. Thousands of trees planted about 15 years ago. And those have established well. And now what we're doing now is a process we're calling densification. And we're planting a lot more different species and a lot closer together so that we can actually get proper forest again. At the moment, everything's a bit spread out. So we're trying to get things much more closed up, and the more we can get the areas covered with endemic plants, the less likely that the invasive plants will come in. The soils and a lot of the areas of the Crown Waste and everything are almost completely destroyed. Deforestation for several hundred years has kind of wrecked the soils. So it's actually very difficult to get stuff established again. That's why we use a lot of the wastewater to get things for the first couple of years. Once they've been there for 2 years or so, they'll look after themselves. But soil formation is a very slow process, and as I said, it takes probably about 100 years to really see the difference. But even under the gumwoods that are 10 or 15 years old, you can see like a whole new soil forming. All the leaf litter drops, and it creates a whole new ecology in the soil. It's the quicker we can get the area covered with endemic trees, the quicker the soils will rebuild themselves. We have them at our sites such as Millennium Forest, High Peak and Blue Point, and we also hold them at the schools. We're creating little endemic mini forests at all the schools, and we get really good turnouts there. It depends. At our sites, it's normally we get about 10 or 15 people, but when we go to the schools, we've had up to 60 people, because the people are very involved with the schools and bring their kids. So it sort of depends on where. We have them once a month, and they're on the first Saturday of each month from 10 till 12:30. Very importantly, we have a beautiful pot of plough at the end of it. It's just all about getting out there, getting involved with nature, getting a bit dirty, planting your trees, that kind of thing, restoring the native forests of Saint Helena.
Because years gone by, this piece of land here was all like flax, but as you can see, some of the flax still there. Until they dig it all out and plant the trees in it, I think it's looking very good at the moment. Because when we first started off down here, we had so many tin houses down here, but now you got big posh buildings and all that, flush toilet and all that stuff. But in those days we didn't have that. And a lot of those trees down here, what plant down here now, we had to use the watering can, walk up and down with the watering can. Now they got leaky pipes all on, which I think is very good. At the moment I'm very pleased with it, because I helped to start it off, and I hope to finish it off. I hope so. As long as the National Trust don't kick me out.
Robert, thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Elsewhere on Ireland, a different type of restoration work is taking place, as the 2 battery guns at Letty Hill are being brought back to their former glory. The guns, which used to fire exercise shots across the island to Prosperous Bay Plain, are being washed and repainted.
Most people on Ireland believe these guns date from the Second World War, but in fact they're much older. They were first requested by the garrison in 1902, while the Boer prisoners were still here. The Boers had left by the time they were delivered, but the first guns were actually installed in 1903. And this gun here, the barrel, carries the date of 1902, manufacturing date, Ezig Ordnance Company 1902. Right. The other gun, the barrel itself has got the date of 1918 on it, so it's obviously a replacement, because the bed it's lying on and the forward armour are both dated 1901, very clearly. The main problem up here is corrosion from the salt in the air. They may look rusty, but the principal source of corrosion is chloride corrosion, which is nasty, hard blue material which grows in sort of pustules all over the metalwork, and in particular it's attacking the edges and the bolts. So the main thrust is to remove as much of that material as possible, wash everything down thoroughly with clean water, let it dry, and then paint with a rust-resisting paint. The calibre is 6 inches. The range, well, these are Mark 7 star, and the star means that it has an uprated A tube, the inner tube of the barrel, which enabled a greater charge to be used. And so they had a range of probably 3.5 to 4 miles with a full charge, which is quite a respectable distance. This one took about 11 hours in preparation, and I had a couple of helpers on Saturday, and we managed to get 10 litres of paint on, and that took about another 6 hours. So I'm hoping to get as far as that one is on the other one, on the western gun, by the end of this coming weekend, because I'm running out of time. I've been here couple of months, and I'm leaving on the 27th. So I need to get them looking respectable, and then I'll finish them off when I come back. Thank you for the publicity you're giving this project, but I'd also like to thank ESH and Tourism for their support in enabling me to do this. And I would also like to thank Connect for laying on a water supply, fresh water supply, so that I can wash the guns down.
At the time they were in use, there was a similar battery at Mundens, but because they didn't have enough equipment, soldiers would have to disassemble the parts from one gun and take them to the other. To do this, they used an old cart, which is now used for fruit and vegetables, in the Star. The Land and Ecological Mitigation Program, or LEMP, has an overall goal to mitigate for the temporarily lost land that was impacted during the building of the airport. LEMP is made of stakeholders, two of which are SHG and Basil Reed. Both stakeholders have responsibility of planting different areas. Recently, Basil Reed has done their part, planting out at the airport site. Russ Towers, LEMP project manager, tells us more.
We have provided them with in this case, samphire and annual beard grass, and Basil Reed are planting them on site. Yeah, there's a mixture. Obviously, we're talking of tens of thousands of plants over the course of the next while, and the process of the LEMP. Like I say, we've already carried out some plantings ourselves. The St Helena government have a responsibility to plant certain areas, Basil Reed have a responsibility to plant other areas, and both stakeholders have already started on that process. But this is, I suppose, one of the first areas of temporarily disturbed land that is getting rehabilitated. So each site is going to be different with each different species as well. Some species are more attracted by rabbits, so we have to do rabbit protection, others not so much, and equally how easy it is or difficult it is to get to a certain site to do the work. So this is a great step forward, but there's lots and lots to come.
The current site that Basil Reed are planting on was home to temporary reservoirs that have now been removed, leaving a bare area of land. This is a big step for LEMP, but the first of many to take place in the coming months. That brings us to the end of this local TV news broadcast. I am Liam Yan for South Atlantic Media Services. Thanks for watching and enjoy your weekend.